And I think they see this as a celebration of that earned and deserved respect.
So in terms of if they want to call themselves the Lady Vols of an individual student athlete, that takes effect right off the bat then? Or
That takes effect right now. As a matter of fact, I have a pin right here that says the Lady Vols. We were talking about that today. Of course, right now. It didn't go away. You know, as John Curry told you, there are signs, there are banners, there are women who refer to themselves as Lady Vols.
did you know before you took this job, or did it kind of take being here to realize kind of the impact and how much this issue kind of meant to a certain segment of the fan base and alumni?
I grew up 18 miles from the Tennessee border. I always knew about the Lady Vols. Did I know about how big of an issue this was and how dear this was to people here? I started receiving letters and petitions, and I listened. Before I came, I was announced in November. So yes, it came to me quickly in large numbers.
How involved were you in this process in terms of building this program?
This is a university decision. You know, the chancellor of the university is involved in the decision. I have a great partner in John Curry, and you know, some of you all ask about what about students. I said I want to hear from students. I listened intently. Students were insightful. Students were passionate about this. I've had many conversations, some focus groups, some individual interviews. I've been intimately involved.
John talked about the conversation you had when you traveled to Kansas. What do you remember from that conversation, specifically about this topic?
Well, you media folks will love this. I remember that he picked me up on the tarmac, and he had in the console the sign, the Tennessee sign, "I will give my all for the University of Tennessee." So John Curry has a sense of humor. From that moment, we started talking, driving out to his house, we were sitting at his kitchen table. I said, "Here are some issues that we will be dealing with," and we talked about it there.
Ultimately, what made you decide individually, your part, in terms of your part of it, that this was the way to go, the way y'all are handling this?
Lady Vols to me is more than a brand, and it's more than a logo. And here's what I heard over and over again. This is our legacy. This is something that celebrates women and women's excellence and women's winning and women's hard-fought challenges to be on equal par with men. It's much more of a celebration of that history and that legacy. You know, I drive on Neyland every day, and I drive right by the Pat Summitt statue, and there are many days that I've sort of, you know, reached out and said, "Pat, I need some spirit today. I need that support and confidence." That's in your heart. You know, that's a part of who you are. That's way more than a sign that you see any place. All of that mattered in thinking about who are we. We have to celebrate and celebrate that pride and celebrate that history and celebrate that sense of accomplishment. I want everybody to remember the University of Tennessee is a place where women can thrive and win.
Dr. Davenport, do you think that some of the blowback from the initial decision was a surprise to people? Because I think maybe the way it's been described is that there were good intentions behind this and that some of the blowback wasn't anticipated.
It's hard for me to know what people thought and what people, did they anticipate? I don't know. I wasn't here and I wasn't part of it.
You all know, and I'm sure you've learned, Vol fans can be a little bit louder than some. This is a direct example of you listening to them. Was that a goal of yours when you came and joined us?
Absolutely. I heard about this from day one. I was sent packets, boxes of petitions. I pulled these out. I read them. I was sent original, probably your all's work, original news clippings. This is powerful. You know, I've had challenges in my career, but yes, I read them. I listened to them. Up until everywhere I go, people say, "I'm not going to talk about work, but I want to tell you about I'm not going to talk about, but yeah, I knew it was. I knew about the Lady Vols. I knew about Pat Summitt. I knew that women's athletics at the University of Tennessee was something powerful. But I said, I can't make this decision until I hear it from the women who have to wear this." And I so admire and appreciate those first. You know, Joan Cronin and Furrow is out there. These women who we do stand on their shoulders, all of us. I don't compete on the field, but yes, it matters in a big way. And I did listen carefully. I had women in my office last week, student athletes. They mattered.
Beverly, in talking to people about this issue, were there people that didn't want to do this? I mean, in sorting through all this process that John talked about, were there people that wanted things to stay the way they were since 2014?
You know, and I tell people when they ask me, what have I learned? And I said, well, here's what I've learned. Tennesseans are not without opinions. And I love that. And I love it that people are passionate. You know, you tend to only hear from people who really want something and hold dear to something. There were people who would say, what do you think? What do you want to do? I didn't hear from anybody that said, do not ever do this. I heard strongly, passionately from the people who cared deeply about what this legacy was.
When did you all kind of decide to go ahead and go with this, and what was that kind of final moment like when you both were like, all right, let's do this thing?
Timelines are interesting, aren't they? I was appointed in November, and I started thinking about this in November, and I started receiving comments and packages about it in November. So everybody I've talked to about what are our challenges, my senior leadership team, what's on the table, what am I walking into, what have I inherited? So I've been on this since the day that I accepted to come to University of Tennessee. I talked to John about it. The day I interviewed him, I talked to everyone who was related, had any affiliation with this. I listened to everyone I could. It's been building. You know, this is the beginning of a new year, so students started coming back. I started hearing more. I said, I want to listen. I want to hear from these people who are competing now. The people who are part of the history never let up. I will give it to them. Their passion, their commitment, their hard-fought respect. That weighed on me too. But, you know, we're 3 weeks into the new semester, so we really started gearing up in the last 3 weeks.
Do you think any changes will come about with the Pat Summitt Plaza over here with the Lady Vols logo?
You know, we have so many things to think about. I started yesterday talking to my chief financial officer and business administrator who has all the Vols shops, and I said, how soon can we get Lady Vols apparel? And he said, well, we might be quicker than Nike. He said, but it does, I mean, think about it. It does take some production time. But as I said, somebody already gave me a Lady Vols pin. I had a Lady Vols umbrella in my office. In my back storage, I had about 4 of them. It didn't go away. So there are Lady Vol items around. You will see more.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.